Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Posturology podcast. And our mission is to give you information about what posturology is and how it can help you bring your athletes, your clients to the next level. And who better to start this series of podcasts with one of the people that got me into posturology a few years ago. His name is Paul Gagné. Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Matt. Merci.
So I didn't want to say how long ago it was, but I guess for the listeners, we have no choice. It was 2002 when I first met with you. And it was Yves Etier who had spoken to me about the fact that as a very beginning personal trainer, it could be interesting for me to look into posturology. Obviously met Dr. Bricot and you were one of the assistants in the class. I'd like to know how you got started with posturology, and maybe even before that, if you can just present yourself to the audience.
Paul Gagné, I'm a posturologist. Was with Yves Etier, we were kind of the first one in Quebec. We got introduced with Dr. Michel Joubert, our podiatrist. He met Bricot, Dr. Bricot in 92. Then in 94, 95, we met Dr. Bricot, and we started to be interested in his work. And we were already, Yves and I were very established already in strength and conditioning, exercise science. But we're always looking for another edge, always curiosity, and also how to make our athletes better. And when we saw it, it was like, whoa, this is very new. We've never heard about that, and that's how we got started. At the beginning, it was not easy because it was more. A lot of doctors were involved, a lot of therapists. Not we were the first one in the performance field. And we had to, in our mind, to kind of translate. Although my main language is French, Dr. Bricot is from Marseille. And it's a bit like if you talk to a New Yorker and speaking to a guy from Birmingham in England. It's a very different slang for us. We have our own slang in Marseille too. And it was very interesting, very open mind. And then we started, Dr. Bricot saw like, hey, wow, these guys doing something very new. Then we started to have CES in Quebec and in Canada, Posturology Performance, and I gave many lectures in the U.S. But it was kind of hard at the beginning. It was not like people when I used to evaluate feet around in the 90, like 95, 96. I started and checked the eyes. People look at me like, what is that? And now, if you you just put posture on. I like that. I'm very happy to see where it is. It's all the young guys like you took it to another level, and I'm very happy about that. And now when I speak, I don't look like I'm from planet Mars. Now I'm kind of free. I'm 62 years old. I'm not retired, but soon, hopefully, for my wife. And then I'm able to expand on like all neuroscience and applying to training and stuff. And like with you guys and having fun. And this is what, at least now we speak the same language. Before we were a bunch like 5, 6 people speaking, and it was like, okay, the rest, what they're talking about. And they were kind of closed-minded. And then now, because of it's very common now. Everybody talks about like a lot of the nervous system and applied neurology and neuroscience with Dr. Huberman. And now you have everywhere where you get podcasts talking about neuroscience. And for us, it makes our work a lot easier now. It's coming like mainstream.
It's becoming mainstream because of people like yourself. I was curious as to how Dr. Joubert back in the days, how did he hear about it?
Well, as you know, Michel, he's like us. Like we're 2 Jack Russell. We're very dangerous together. And with you, we're 3 Jack Russells. That's you throw a ball, and if we're 3 of us, we're gonna play at it. And for some people, it could be on their nerve, but we like it. We won't change. And Michel was very curious because it was kind of disturbing for his practice. He's a podiatrist. They used to make a lot of orthotics and stuff, but it was very open mind to apply. He still made orthotics for like skates and stuff, and for like he's a doctor for Morton's neuroma but he applied a lot of the postural insoles and the sensitivity of the foot all to activate the receptors. And Dr. Joubert is very good in biomechanic. Was the missing link also back then in CES. They didn't understand that much. And when Joubert came in, and with Yves and I, with our craziness and exercise, then it was a perfect storm. And that's how we got started.
Because he was also very influenced by Paul Chek, and you've done obviously a lot of work with Paul. I'd like to hear maybe about how that all came together. So posturology, Paul Chek's influence, who obviously speaks about posture and motor development. How did you guys put that all together in how you trained athletes, even when you first started off with posturology?
But Paul was very good to take what all the testing that we do, like for physiotherapy, and make it a little more mainstream. Like he took a lot of Kendall and stuff, and he was very crafty. I think he was the first one to really bring the Swiss ball into the air, and after that, the Dyna disc, and that was like the sit fit. And I know his son was a surfer, and it was really, really good. It was very like creative. Us two together were dangerous too. And then Charles Poliquin introduced me to Paul Chek, and then mixing with Charles, I was very curious. Then you had like a big team of very curious people, and that's how posturology came in. That's in the States. They talk about posture. I remember when I started was gait and posture, but they didn't really apply the neuroscience of it. They think of posture like a bit like in the old days, you stretch what's tight and strengthen what's loose, like the old way of treating scoliosis. But we all know that if you don't treat the brain and all the receptors, it will not hold in time. Everything is good, but posturology gave us a good baseline of where to start with everything. Like it happened with rehab, with athletic performance, even for regular mom and dad daily. The grandma, the young kids, especially the young kids, gave us a big edge on that, and that's why it's a mix of everything that we did in the practice and applying, and that's where. With you guys, it's fun to, okay, now there's recipes now more. Before it used to be like was very rigid. Posturology was more rigid back then, and it didn't apply to trainers aside. Listen, I'm already doing a lot of these testing. I had another hour of testing. I will have to charge an arm and a leg, and also time consuming. And my clients, if he doesn't understand the test, it will not apply the exercises. And our job was, okay, now take this off, take this in, and you'll see how it's going to be a lot better.
In his late 40s, Charles became really interested in posturology, was promoting it, referring trainers for the training. My understanding is that in his earlier days, when you guys were practicing it, was he interested? Was it like a bit too out there for him? What was your
At
take
the
on it?
beginning, yes. Even I remember we were in a hotel in New York City. Once in a while, Eve and we used to spend a lot of money. Charles, although was our friend, was no freebie. I didn't want it. It's knowledge. You need to respect. And then we used to either whether, hey, Charles, you have a couple of hours. We're in New York. Yeah, perfect, guys. I'll block 4 or 5 hours. And I remember I brought him insoles. I even brought them back then. We used magnets, and he had very good results. But again, he was not probably ready on that right away, and he was becoming a big businessman now, selling products and supplements and stuff, and it was hard. But then when we stepped down, and then Annette took it, then she brought it to him. Now he was already, oh yeah, I heard Paul and Guy Voyer talk about it and stuff, and now like he was more open minded. I think that's where he was going toward that, because he understood that the benefit of it, of for his clients and also for himself.
The benefit of repeated exposure, eh? You can be told something once, maybe in your like 30s, and it you hear it, it's like yes, but then repeated exposure maybe is what did it, because obviously later on he became a big proponent, and he helped us quite a bit in development. To this day, we have trainers that come up to us and they say, oh, I know Charles really respected you and he really liked posturology. And I think, geez, like, but that was years in the making, and Charles was not an easy person to convince about anything, right? Even if there was logic and maybe even science behind it, he was very much like, you have to prove to me that it works. And obviously maybe that takes a few years, and maybe a few more years for some people. So yeah, I was interested in knowing that you had been in the know of posturology back in those days. Okay, so that makes sense that he was exposed, but very mechanical, I guess, like most people with his reasoning with biomechanics. You brought it up in terms of the gait and posture. Like that's I find the number one thing right now, even as the neuro thing is getting bigger. It's still as if you have to put on a new hat, right? Like, you either look at things from a mechanical lens and you say some muscles are tight, some muscles are weak, which is true. But then the neuro aspect of things kind of makes you think, okay, but why is that? And so you were telling me before we went on air, you see that it's developing more because you travel quite a bit. Tell me about your perspective for how neuro is developing, even with the clients that you've had, because you've had world champions for so many years. In the circles that you are working with, how's that all coming together?
again, like you said, it's exposure. The more you see. When you see like Scott Livingston doing it now, and many of the other guys that were not exposed to it. Now there's more influencers now, and like they're doing it, and now people say that must. I don't want to miss the boat. Before we were the only one on the island, and although we had very very high success, like you know me, I've never been very like uh, Alex Lemay from Expertise calls me like the best kept secret. But it's in my time. Like again, I'm born in 1961. It was very, we say in French, faux pas. If you expose yourself too much, it means that even Charles, for years until Kim Goss started to write for him in Muscle Media and Iron Man and stuff like this, was not known. It was only known to the circle of us, like sports performance, but not that much outside of NSCA. No one knew him, but he didn't want anyone to also know him that much because he was. We were like the chef. I always give the analogy of like 10 years ago. You never saw like a Paul Bocuse or like on a cooking show. Now it was artists, it was actors that they were cooking. Obviously, they're not specialists, but they had someone else write the recipe or teach them. Now the stars are the chef. Now us, the physical preparators, the exercise physiologists, were in front of the camera. Well, before it just used to be our athletes showing stuff. But the athlete, all due respect to the athlete, he just do what the architect does. And we're the architect. We're the one that can teach it. Many of our athletes, although they're very well educated with what we do, they don't have the same background as we have. And I don't have the same background to play in the NHL like they do. See, that's where people, they used to be starstruck. Oh my God, that NHL guy does it. It must work. Okay, but why does he do it? And you need to understand. That's what we were talking earlier before the podcast, that the reels are not really real. There's there's a missing in the EE because a lot of it is like really quick, but it's kind of fast food. And if you don't really understand what they want to do or what they do, it's mainly, I know it's infomercial, but to have a good grasp on people, I feel it's better to explain a little more, even if it's just a couple of minutes. Like I was telling you, I like these like 8, 9, 10 minutes of mini explanation. I mean, I'm busy, but not that busy not to take 10 minutes to be interested in a subject, not to have to dumb it down to 30 seconds or 40 seconds. Seeing someone doing backflips over something with an elastic band, that could be very valid for certain circumstance. But if you don't know it, and if the regular personal trainer does that, you could really injure his client. Or signing up for that guy who's promoting that, maybe it's just like these acrobat that wants to show stuff, but there's no format. It's the same in breathing. I've been using breathing techniques for the last 30 years. Now everybody's doing it now. And I see not everybody's doing it wrong, but not everybody's doing it right. No one talks about the diaphragm. No one talks about the engine, what you need to create breathing, and why do you do that? If you have anxiety, are you going to do very high speed? No. If you go, there's many. What do you do before a competition, after, during? And also, if you want to train with it, what do you do? There are applications like in breathing technique, same as in posture.
Considering that it used to be that if you wanted to learn more, you had to go to a 2 or 3 day course, and you would obviously get something out of that. As you say, nowadays, you can look at a 60-second reel, which isn't very real. So 10 to 12 minutes, as we were saying, is the sweet spot. Who does Paul Gagné like to listen to so that for the audience, they would be good resources if they want to learn more about anything neuro that you find is applicable to what you do?
Andrew Huberman, I really respect on that. He likes, he guides a lot. He's always having like either strength coach or a yoga teacher, or he has like different type of yogis almost. It's very open for a scientist. He's very open mind. And I feel like that's a guy that I would like to sit down and talk to about like what I've learned it's my 42nd year, and the experience of combining neuroscience and applied neurology to performance, and also in rehab. There's many more, but I think what you're going to do here, it's going to be pretty much pioneering because of the application of posturology. See, a lot of the podcasts, they talk, but okay, where's the actual either the workout? What can I try?
Right.
That's why when I give workshops on breathing, I send the PDF before and we train, because how do you want to feel what breathing or hypoxia or intermittent hypoxia or hypoventilation feels? If you just read it, you need to feel it. If you want to teach it as a coach, you need to feel it before. It's like a chef without tasting his recipe. I mean, you don't serve food that without trials and errors through all the time.
One of the guests that Huberman had that I think could be of great interest to people listening and watching this podcast is Ido Portal. What's your take on Ido's methods or methodology, and is it something that you apply in your practice?
Yeah, I mean, everything is good.
Yeah.
You said the magic word. Like a good trainer or physiologist has a toolbox, and you need to know what to use. And a lot of time, people, they have too much of a toolbox. They learn too many things, but the tools are just very narrow. Everything is like a knife, or if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, but it's like that. I mean, you need a lot, but you need to go deeper in certain things. That side of the toolbox has to be a little deeper. If you want to work electricity, you won't have the same toolbox as a mason or someone that works on the wood, or that's the thing. Both, they look on the outside, it looks the same. But like guys, like everybody's doing calisthenics and stuff, everything is good. Like yoga, I mean, I've known people that are real yogis, like Shishir Inokala, one of my good friend. He was the original Michelangelo in the Ninja Turtle, the movie. But that guy's a real deal. Like, he's like in his late 60s now. He looks super young. He's super fit. But he talks the talks and he walks the walk. And I've spent a lot of time with him in Orlando. Now he lives in Vancouver. And that's the kind of yogi you want to learn about breathing and stuff. He lives in India. He's from the Philippines. And he's trained many world champions. He's a specialist in arnis fighting, stick fighting. And those are the people that he's not very well known outside of being Michelangelo in the TV show, in the movies. But that's certain guys. That's why, see, with Portal, what he did is very interesting, because he put kind of a system behind, and this is very, for me, it's easier to guide or to tell them, listen, go and buy certain type of videos or follow, and you'll be well served. Because you don't want to be a jack of all trade, master of none. Like Al Doa from Guy Voyer, I was one of the first teacher, but now there are teachers that they're way better than I am. I tell them, listen, go and see that person, and you'll see you'll be well served. Some of my students from the States that started, they became specialists in Aldoa. Instead of doing all the Soma training, they kind of they did it, but they're more, and they developed stuff that I don't even know about Aldoa. And if you're my athlete, I want you're the important. It's not me. If here we're three people, each one of us, we have a quality. We need to be able to, the goal is that person next to us gets better. And I don't care, but I always mention, okay, Matt did that, and I did, but that's it, always as a team. And that's the biggest issue we have in our work, a lot of egos too. And I see trainers, they see an athlete for 2-3 months, oh, it's my athlete. No, he's been formed I knew the guy who trained him for 20 years. You just mention his name, please. That's what I did with many of my athletes. Like we did together. You send me people, I send you people, but you will never post like, oh, this is mine. No. This is an athlete. Paul Gagné and I, we work together, and hopefully I helped him a lot, and that was good. And that's always being, and that's what's going to happen next time when I see someone, hey, go and see Matt, because I know we work as a team. That's the biggest thing that I see today. People are a little too much, like, just dig deeper in what they say about who they work with. It's very easy to talk about, but if you dig deeper, a lot of time, and I've seen guys and girls like having almost like thousands of followers on Instagram everywhere, they've never trained anyone. Not that much. They've seen people, they took pictures with them.
They took pictures.
They might have seen them for 1 or 2 visits.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make them their trainers or bringing them to the Olympics. And this is where, but people are starstruck. They look at, wow, like when I work with Yuki Tsunoda, it's Michael Italiano, strength coach, who brought it. He came in my garage once. Yes, we had videos, but I'm not his trainer. I'm just part of the consultant that worked with him. And I've always been very open. Same with Daniel Ricciardo, who was, now he's with AlphaTauri, he was with McLaren. It's Michael again that brought him to me. We just did a couple of Zoom and that's it. And that's the extent of I'm very happy about that. It was fun.
Yeah.
But I know, like, if I helped, it's like that compared to Michael Italiano's work, what he did. He was the guy behind it. And I'm just part of a small part of the puzzle.
Aren't we all, eh? That's the whole thing. We develop a specialty or an interest, and then if we can help someone with that, more power to us, and good for them. And these athletes are going to be the product of everyone that's been able to coach them, from their technical coach, from their strength coach. I'm curious because I love F1 racing. What specific work were you brought on to do with the two racers in terms of helping them in F1?
Well, with Yuki, I had the chance to have him in my garage, my gym lab. We have, like, with Desmotech, we have these force plate, the e-board. I measured. I wanted to make sure his posture was good. Gave him some breathing techniques, and tested him. I mean, that kid's very good, and he was very well trained. Like Michael told me, if I had seen him a year before, it was not the same. He's very young, but Michael did a very good job with him, and was just like, at that level, if we're able to just bring little thing like 1% here and 1% there, makes a big difference for them. And they like that. They like that their coach that's following them all year has access to other people. Same with Daniel Ricciardo. We work a lot on his breathing. Sadly, I could not see him because I met his coach after the Grand Prix, and 2 years ago he came to see me. He had brought my program online of breathing. That's why he sent me an email. He says, "Can I meet you?" And then we did a couple of Zoom with Danielle on like, just especially for breathing, and also Eldoa, postural realignment. But in season, it's harder also, but just a bit. And he told Michael that he felt good. It was good for him.
Vision training nowadays is huge. If you look at
Mm-hmm.
Instagram and social media, a lot of the trainers are starting to incorporate, for better or worse, vision drills, saccades and peripheral versus central vision. When I think about posturology, we've been speaking about, eye movement training for so many years. And it seems to me like often enough, that used to be the factor that would throw off trainers, because they thought, okay, maybe they understood the foot part, right? Because, the gait, the running, and the cutting, but the eyes, it always seemed to me, when I would approach trainers a few years ago with the fact that we do eye training, that was like the spooky part. Nowadays, it's almost like a plus when we say, oh, well, we do eye training with posturology, because that's something that they're actually familiar with. How have you seen that whole that interest, the growth in interest for eye movement training? I see it a lot in the States, but you have a really international view of this. So have you seen more interest of trainers in looking at eye movements?
I think in North America, they're very Australians too. They do that a lot. When neuro tracking started to work, the fit lights and stuff like this, they've done it. But now, a lot of trainers, they don't really understand that we have muscles around the eyes still today, and they think eyes of vision stuff, and I'm going to get a better vision, and it's, as you know, it's not the case. I mean, it's just it's a receptor, and we have to strengthen it, but also has to do different is work as a receptor, also as a sensor. But again, what's the good news is that when we analyze the eyes, they don't think they're going to the optometrist anymore.
Right.
When I used to just check the conversion, or say, well, why you do that? I see good. So no, I just want to check if the muscle of your eyes are working well. I think the missing part is the sensitivity part of the foot. No one talks about it a lot. They talk about, like, the angle and the flat foot and a lot of the mechanic. But as we know, if you don't have a proper alignment of the foot pad and all the receptors from the pacinians to the Meissner, then you will be in for a ride, for your mechanical change might not appear as quick. And that's where I think there's a little more education to be done on that, just a bit more.
Yeah, so I want to go back to eyes, but we'll definitely go back to feet, because I absolutely agree. Even in functional neurology, if you look at what the Americans are doing, they're really big on vestibular, they're really big on eye training, but that sensitivity of the skin of the foot, it's just non-existent. It's just not a topic that's brought up. So we'll go back to that. When it comes to eye training, I'll be really good at the basic stuff like convergence and phorias. But quite frankly, as far as a clinician, I then work with other people like Gab and Yan, and then they'll do the neural tracker and then they'll do the peripheral vision. How do you work on all of it? Like, because you're coming from a place of performance, how do you position these different techniques or objectives, convergence versus peripheral vision? When do you train one? When you do look, when are you ready to work on another module?
But in many cases, like first of all, I want to make sure that they have bifocal vision, and we do like a Lang test. That's number one. A lot of people they don't do that, and you could create like a microstrabismus, but that's number one. But second, my go-to exercise was what Bernard showed me was the figure eight. I had a guy like Michael Campbell who won the U.S. Open in 205, 206, and I didn't want to take a chance because I didn't have tools, but I gave him and he won the U.S. Open. He told me like, Paul, I mean, I was putting everything that was very interesting, but he didn't do anything special. It was just the horizontal figure eight. I'll do a lot of stuff like the infinity walk. Moishe Feldenkrais was very big on that, and that creates very good VOR, vestibulocular reflex. And we didn't really know. I've been doing that for 25 years, but we didn't really know why. But we knew it improved balance in some of our clients who had like either Parkinson's or like a bit of like they had a stroke and they're rehabbing, but also our athletes after post concussions. And we had good. I do it on the ice, like the infinity skates with different. We were the first one to work with white pucks. People say white. It says the ice is white. And what is the number one quality of a hockey player is keeping your head up. Your stick is long. And the puck is black on a white ice, don't tell me that with training you can't see it. Then if it's a way better postural advantage if I keep my center of mass well centered over my skates. And if you have, as an example, a disharmonic foot, and you have hypoconvergence on one eye, what is going to happen? You're going to have an anterior scapular plane. Your center of mass will be deviated forward. What's going to happen? You'll be skating on your toes. Then you will not use the whole length of your blade, and you will not get stability and speed and also mobility by doing the eye exercise and also implementing eye movement with the vestibulocoelic and and VOR2 at the same time with the eyes and the movement. We see a very quick adaptation when they return to a black puck and they're in traffic and they have to move. I see, and I say, okay, where do you feel it? Oh, I feel more on my heels. That's good. How do you feel when you turn? Yeah, I feel more in balance. I'm able to respot my player or where I shoot quicker. Perfect. We done. Keep going. You'll see. I do that with goalies. A lot of the different type of movement, but it's also based on what we've learned with all like from Carrick and all these guys, but we just apply it in a different way.
I would think that strength coaches listening to us right now are probably starting to think, okay, bench press is good, but I can't get those types of results with more strength, right? Because the industry was, and probably still is to some extent, very dominated with the fact that...
What's bench press?
Right.
I haven't used that for 30 years.
That's what I was thinking.
What is that?
Strength development, right?
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
big three. It's big in the States, right? Like,
Yeah,
obviously, what you guys are doing here is on a different frequency. But this is where I'm thinking, like, I'm just putting myself in the shoes of a strength coach, and I'm thinking, okay, I love my big threes. I can measure strength and power, but everything Paul just talked about, I have no tools to work on this. Right? Like I have no tools to actually get my athlete to be more precise, to be more reactive, which is, eye movement dominant, right? How reactive you are playing with contrasts, as you said, in terms of like the white puck versus the black one. So this is where I always think, okay, well, you can still do all of the big threes but if you add the neuro stuff to your training, you're not taking anything away from the athlete. If anything, you're just making them more competent at the entire game. So unless you're the goon in the hockey team, which I'm not too sure that even exists anymore, does each hockey team still have a guy that just
Yeah,
kicks ass?
there's a couple, but now there's multitask. The like most of the guys that they're targeted, it doesn't really exist anymore. Goons,
Okay, that's it.
they're
Yeah.
but they have good people that you don't want to mess around if you're around.
But they're still like decent hockey players. They're not just there to
No,
like.
not anymore. There's no room for that anymore.
Gotcha. We were talking about the feet, and I agree. I think it's a concept. A lot of physical trainers look at feet from a mechanical standpoint, and obviously that's a whole thing to address, right? And but the sensitivity of the skin. I know you've been using some pretty cool techniques over the years. Maybe that'll give an idea to the trainers listening to the podcast. We use insoles in posturology, but there's so many ways to stimulate the skin of the feet and to create the awareness for the brain to use them. Tell us about the different techniques you've used over the years to do that with your athletes.
Well, we started many years ago, if you remember, with little cobblestone mat. But now I like better like the Shakti mat. They're like little mini spike, looks like golf spikes. I feel like it's more like, like these fakir that they walk on. It's not, they're so tight that you don't feel pain, but you need to really feel the sensation. For 16 years, I was going back and forth in Jamaica, and I was shocked. Like my Jamaican friends used to walk on coral without pain. And I always assumed that, wow, these guys, they have tough feet, but it's not. They have more sensitive feet than I had. That's why they were, instead of pushing down hard, they were floating. And I saw how they ran. They float. They were great sprinters, great runner. They played soccer bare feet. All day they were barefoot. Then their feet were adapted to the environment, and rarely these soccer guys or track guys that sprain ankles because they had 5Gs already in their feet. Now sitting down all day, we're down to 3G, and then when you stand up, your body doesn't really know what's going on. It would be interesting to do a study on the foot of garbage men or garbage women.
Yeah.
And I read a research, and they had one of the lowest rate, I think, of COVID problem. Yeah, because first of all, they have very little sugar problem. I mean, like a lot of the viruses, they love insulin resistance. And when you run after a truck all day, unless you really eat very bad, it's kind of hard. You have like what you women talk about, like the jittering system. And a lot of the trainers too, we forget that when you work in a gym, we expend a lot of energy all day. We don't sit down. We coach. We bring weights. We have to show exercise. But this is like sometimes 10, 12 hours. It's the same people. But a lot of these garbage guys, they're grabbing from a side movement. They're off balance. They jump in the back of the truck in movement. Imagine what the work on their brain is. I mean, they're tremendous athletes.
Yeah,
That's
they're
why
athletes. Yeah.
when I see them, I slow down. I tell people, "Come on, guys, because people are impatient.
Right.
Guys, come on, they're working hard. These guys,
Yeah.
and now there's women too. I'm not. I see many girls.
Yeah.
And also the theory also is that they smell. I mean, in the summer, I don't know if you follow the truck, but there's so much junk in the truck that they're so much exposed to either bacteria or virus that their immune system is really souped up too. That's the thing. It's also they're more resilient. And that's why I've been using cold shower for years. A sauna, I think mine last night, I think it was like 210 degrees. I have a sauna in my backyard. My neighbors, they see me half naked rolling in the snow and training without a shirt at minus 15. But I've been doing that since I'm very young because my mom, part Native American, we always were raised. They used to dig a hole in the lake where they're from up north and jump in the lake in the winter when my grandfather had to grab ice to put it on a sled and to put some sawdust on it because they didn't have refrigerators back then. But at minus 30, her and her brothers and sister used to jump in the lake.
Before it was trendy.
Yeah. And they used that a lot. And it was but that's all the body and now the foot. See, we were talking about feet. When you're running in the snow bare feet, it's pretty interesting how your receptors and you learn to control also your movements and not dig. If you see when now they have these, I do a lot of training in the snowshoes. It's called SnowFit. I have a program, but they're small snowshoes. If you're heavy foot, we call it, you're going to sink. And this is that's why the Native American used to wear only moccasins, very, very thin skin, but no padding because
Right.
you sprain your ankle at -30 in the woods, you could die. You could be there for a couple of hours and you're done. And using the Shakti mat helped me. Also, I use these bracelet. They're acupressure bracelet. They're from India. One of my colleagues from Sardinia, he works with us with Desmotech, and he showed me that Simone Ripamonti. He's very crafty. He has always these tools. We're very similar. We always get along together. And he brought me that many years ago. With these little acupuncture, you could buy it on Etsy now, and they have it for fingers, toes, and also the hands and the feet. A lot of my hockey players, they like that. They rub I should have brought it. It's just a little bracelet in copper, and it's kind of not sharp, but I mean, if you don't press too hard, really activates. Within 30 seconds, your hands are so hot. And we did some testing with chin-ups and stuff, and all the athletes saw the difference. We do the same with the hands. Like we use these, they call it the prosciutto. It's like, I think you saw them in my gym. They're like a rock climbing like device,
Okay.
like that you hang. You could buy that like at sales or whatever outdoor. And we do chin ups with that because
Wow.
to progress, you start with all the fingers and you could go down to 2 fingers. But for hockey players, for tennis players, for golfers, it's very important because it brings not only the strength, but also the mobility. And then if you mix that with proprioception, putting in the receptors, putting your hands on the Shakti mat or with that little acupressure, or even the spike balls, that helps a lot. Neuro spike, we use that a lot. We use in the dryer. They had it, and for years you could buy it at Dollarama, and you do it. It's in
It's so
plastic,
simple.
and it's just to activate because we sit down so much.
Right.
And it's that's one thing that we use a lot for activation.
You brought up the Desmotech, and I want to hear you more on that. I'm familiar with it because you use it and my friends use it, but this is not like most trainers might not even know about it. And I know you guys are using it somewhat to get some results on posture. I love the continuum between the clinical aspect of posturology and what you guys are doing with the Desmotech. If you can talk to us a bit more about that.
Well, it's isoinertial. It was invented by Karolinska Institute in Sweden in many years for the NASA. NASA back then was planning to send astronauts for a prolonged period of time in the 80s. And what happens in the space, you lose a lot of muscle mass and bone density. And they understood that eccentric training could build that, but you don't want to bring a squat rack in a plane or in a space shuttle. Then they invented a kind of a leg press that was re-injecting eccentric, and that's how yo-yo started. That gave birth to many other companies. But Desmotech took the same principle of a strap and made them with cords. And I was exposed. They were first year that they started. One of my ex speed skater, Eric Bedard, was in Italy. I think he was the head coach of the Italian short track speed skating, and he knew a guy, Marc Pelletier from Quebec, who makes skates. And he says, Marc, bring that to Quebec. I think you'll sell a lot. And then through his contact, he called me, and I was exposed to it the first time in 2012. And I had a couple of top hockey players with me. And in August, I'm not that talkable. I mean, I'm kind of tired now. The season's going to start soon, and babysitting sometimes 40 NHLers, it's not that easy because they have all I'll have a golf tournament tomorrow, whatever. It's fun, but in August everybody's tired. They want to go to camp, and everybody's a little edgy. And then he brings me the machine. I still had 4 players in my room who were going on the ice. Says, guys, I need a favor. I know we're done. We did legs. We did jump tests. We have a platform to measure. We're all done. Just do 1 set and just to see. Right. What their claim is that you'll increase your jump. So, all right. They go on, and every one of them, they increase their jump. We did 3 sets. Says, guys, don't tell anyone when we go on the ice. I just want to keep the surprise because I'm not sure, again, if I'm going to pay for it. Then I'm the coach. Then I don't have to get dressed right away. Then I spend time on the machine. I do like 4 or 5 sets. Then I'm on the ice with the guys, and we're 5 that did the machine. Says, guys, is it me or our legs? They move by themselves. Says, yeah, it's like we have springs. And that's what happened is that what Desmotech did with the cords and the mechanism, usually what they call it's eccentric overload. Most companies that they do isoinertial, there's dozens now in the world, like they have a cone sometimes it's a strap. Right. It's good for fitness, but for high level performance, for me, not for everybody. A lot of people, they don't agree with me, but I agree with myself because I got a lot of experience now. It's been like over 12 years. I use that like like thousands of hours. You know me, I like a mad scientist, and I use it on myself too.
Right, you
And
test it on
I've
yourself.
never been in that shape in my life. And then what happened is that because of the cord, the eccentric overload becomes a high velocity eccentric overload. See, when you finish the concentric, the kick is so fast to bring you down that you really need to decelerate fast, like in any aspect of a movement. Where do you sprain your ankle? When you're at the bottom or at the top? You just get, oh, it's quick. Hockey, change direction. Soccer, tennis. That my first slide when I teach, and remember when I taught, was the why. Why do you train? If you play hockey, if you play soccer 5 times a week, you don't really need to see me, you're in good shape. But if you want to perform at a higher level without having injuries, you need to go above and beyond the needs of your sport. Right. That's why when I start to work with the flywheel devices from Desmotech, I went way above, because the first time the athletes and myself were on it, it was like riding a rodeo. We're right on the bull, man. It was very unpredictable, but that's what sports are. Every rep is very hard to time, like in hockey, like in any sports. It's not linear like the 3 big lifts. That's great if you're a power lifter or
right.
You need a certain base of strength. Don't get me wrong. My guys used to do it, but not too long, because hockey, there's only like 12 weeks max if you're lucky, if there's no injuries. Then the Desmotech helped me to really squeeze in my periodization, really go from, we could do isometric with it, very high load and eccentric. I could do more load on concentric in one aspect, and also works a lot the fascia. In 2019 with my colleague, Dr. Mathieu Boulé, he's a very, very well-known radiologist in Montreal. We had 3 type of ultrasounds, very high resonance, and we did a belt squat to mimic a bit, to have the same type of pull.
Right.
We use a pulley with a belt squat, and our Desmotech squat device, the D, it's called the D Sport. And we had about 30 people going a couple of times a week on one, then measure patella tendon activity, like this, the signal of the patella tendon, the muscle activity. And we did a lot of the patella and the Achilles tendon and all the muscle of the legs. And it was very interesting. After one set on the D Sport from Desmotech, already when you did the ultrasound, it started to get into the orange and yellow and almost red. It means that the signal was increased. When a signal of a tendon is increased, there's less pull on the muscle, and you don't get as long as domes. That's the thing. When we did with the same load we did with the belt squat, the tendons were, kind of like greenish, a bit yellow, but the muscle were on fire. But the people that we did that on a Monday, like half the group was doing, and on the Tuesday, the people did the belt squat, could not move. They were all like sore, to the point that it affected their Thursday workout.
Right.
And the one that did on the Monday, the Desmond, they felt like better the day after. They felt like they had springs in their legs. And that's why eccentric training is not very well, I don't think in the literature is well explained, because they don't understand the high velocity part of it. They think, eccentric is going to damage my muscle tissue. No, it doesn't. It works a lot more to fascia, ligament, and tendons, or fascia. It activates fascia, and fascia has is able to do what we call intercommunication in between fascia, because it's water.
Right.
And then when there is electricity in the fascia, it communicates to each other, and that's the tension. Muscle is dead meat. Yeah. Without the fascia. The envelope of a nerve is what? Epinerve. Yeah. The envelope of a vein is epivein. Everything that envelopes everything is fascia. Yeah. That's why if you work the fascial part of your training, you'll be a lot in better shape, and you're going to develop more elastic strength. But what it does, because of that unpredictable high velocity perturbation, creates a lot of adaptation at the cerebellum too. You have no choice. And also the receptors of the feet, your spine has to adapt very quickly. That's why you have to be coached to that. You can't leave that in the gym without supervision, because first of all, you won't use it correctly. And second, you will not benefit as much as if you have someone. That's why most clubs in Europe now, they have the Desmo zones, and it's like a semi-private type. They have, like, say, I could train 6 people on them at the same time, because I'm used to it. I tested them before years, and we have software that measures
Right.
eccentric, concentric, and also we have these platform that measures isometrics too, and we'll combine both isometric with isoinertial and with very, very good results in a very, like in 15, 20 minutes workout. And that's why a lot of my clients during COVID, they bought these devices, and they're regular moms and dad, and it took the size of not even that room to have a full. I could bring you to the Olympics with these machines. They have different horizontal pulley. They got the platform and solve stuff, and actually they have a lot of mileage on them, and they're really tough. I mean, that was my main question at the beginning. So, oh yeah, I mean, the Italian designs are fancy, but they won't last there. They really last. I mean, they went to the Olympics. They were in a box. I bring them on the ice. They got beat up, and they're still doing well after 12 years.
It's a good sign
Yeah,
because
it's a good
you guys
sign.
love using them, so
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah,
great
yeah.
if they last.
Yeah.
If anyone has questions about the Desmotech, feel free to contact Paul because again, this is next level, and I know where most of the people listening this podcast where they're at, and for sure, Desmotech is something that they might have heard about, but it would be beneficial for them to look into it. It's a great continuum when I look at what they know from posturology, the mindset, and what you can how you can essentially help the athlete progress from being better at posture and actually going into movement. And I do want to ask you that question, movement versus posture. A lot of the strength coaches in the States have told me flat out, listen, I'm not interested in posture because for me, everything's about how my athlete moves. You and I obviously know it's different. How would you explain it to them that posture matters even if you're a strength coach and movement is the thing that is your main interest?
Ask Yuki Tsunoda how important his tires are. I was there in Formula One. I was very fortunate at the Montreal Grand Prix. I was behind. I was with the engineer, and it's just tires. It's very interesting. Most of the team now, they have access pretty much of same technology for engine and stuff, and it's a suspension adjustment and tires pretty much. All the drivers are really talented, and I tell you, it's because at one point you might be able to use, like, you have to use used tires. You have like these medium, you got the hard, and there's real strict rules. And I see the guys panic when they don't. Oh my God, I'm not gonna have to rely on the medium, but they're already. I mean, they don't talk about their engine like this. They don't talk about. This is the same as I tell people. Whatever I see in static, it's going to be exponentially worse in speed. You might compensate, but if you have a slow-mo camera, you will see that the shearing force and everything is going to be worse. I just see a kid coming in my house, in my garage, and I tell you, I've never seen him play tennis or hockey or golf, and I would say 99% of the time on spot, just the way they stand up. Very, very easy. And when I talk to technical coach, they love to come because now I see them, they're wobbling their head. They say they agree because they've seen that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they look at me, how do you know it? Did you see videos? I says, no, just seeing him, just taking sagittal plane, horizontal plane, frontal plane, just the way they carry their head, the way they stand on one leg. I know exactly what's going to happen. It's normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you have a rattle in your car, it's rarely that you'll find it at 30 or 40 kilometers an hour. You're going the highway at 120. Hey, what's that? I never felt that wheel move. Like but because that's what happens with athletes. But if your eye is not made for it, athletes are very good to compensate.
Right. Yeah.
But there is a price to compensate. Don't get me wrong. No one could be, there's no perfect posture. It does not exist.
Yeah, exactly.
But you need to be, okay, there's a baseline.
Right.
And you have that gap that you stay inside. An athlete has to be more here.
Right.
And general population more here. It depends. It's like I get tested in the States a lot with either my blood with Dr. Eric Serrano is one of the top functional medicine in the world, actually. And I'm very fortunate every time I do blood tests, I send him, and his norms are not at all what I get from the lab that I pay a lot of money for. He says, no, Paul, you think you're all right? This, I don't like that. So, what do you mean? I'm in the green. No. You're in the green for them, not for me. The way you train, the way you treat yourself, you need to be there. If not, you're going to break down, my friend. You train like a Formula One. It's the same thing as when posture. The higher level your athlete is, or the client that's weekend warrior. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
for the price we charge, we don't really see, like, we see regular people, but we see active people.
Yeah.
We're very lucky. Then if they're active, for most people now, the gym became their life. They don't have time to play sports, but they want to, they're tired of doing all just machines. They like to do Olympic weightlifting. They see all these things on reels, throwing medicine ball, jumping over boxes. There's a price to pay if you're not posturally aware. I agree with them in the old days when there was only posturologists who had no clue about training, or they didn't have an associate with training background. This is like a tool. But now, now a trainer taking posturology, that's the advantage. Like we did, because we understand how to train people. Now, not only I'll save time of balancing you up because you reprogram posturally, I just save months. And now I'll be able to give you exercise to continue, not to turn it around and have to start back next year. And I see it. The more I get an athlete for a long period, the less I have to redo. It's not a starting every year. I don't have to go back to the beginning. If he did just a bit of eye exercise, a bit of Aldoa, a bit of breathing stuff, doing just a maintenance stuff, exercise.
The basics.
Yeah, that's the key.
There's before we finish, there's one concept that is, I believe, completely misunderstood by so many people in our industry, and that's proprioception. Most people think proprioception is jumping on a Swiss ball and doing balance work. I remember back in those days, you told me you had gotten a chance to speak to Jean-Pierre Rolle, which not every one of us got that chance interested in the posturology, and we know he's behind so much of the work that we still use nowadays to justify what we do. Tell me about what proprioception is for you now based on your whole career and these people that you got to meet.
Well, Jean-Pierre Rolle was one of the first one to understand, like the joints are like a barcode. When you go to the grocery store, you go on it and it gives you the price. Basically, if I use my elbow flexor, it is basically the quality of the eccentric of my tricep that will code the precision. Like Guy Voyer is a specialist, Dr. Guy Voyer. That was one of his questions in an exam. What group of muscle controls the most the precision and the speed and power of kicking a soccer ball? And everybody said quads. Says no, it's hamstrings. Because as you extend the leg, it's the eccentric component in the quality of the hamstrings. And by the way, the hamstring don't exist because it's four muscle, completely different angles, but that's another story. Actually, Kim Goss, my colleague, just finished an article on the Nordic curl, and we kind of blasted it because it's just linear, it's just semi-tendinosis. And when is the last time you're using your hamstring while running while your feet are fixed somewhere? Does not exist. Like, to rephrase Charles Poliquin, when we talk about the leg extension, unless you're in an ass-kicking contest, leg extension, unless you're doing a bit of rehab in different part, like in the end range or under like physio, but if you do it like for training, heavy and stuff, you're looking for trouble. You're going to create a lot of shearing force. Same thing with, but that's the same principle in everything. If you know how to apply stuff in a proper way, you will get. But what Rolle has found, that was very interesting with the barcode and also how to use. But what we found, and is that if you have the quality of high velocity, eccentric component, you're able to move fast, then you'll move faster in the other direction. Your deceleration factor will be, like for a baseball pitcher, what decelerates the shoulder the most? Almost long head of the bicep. But if you only train the bicep on a Scott curl, very heavy, while your elbows are rested, how do you think you're going to manage when your elbow goes at high speed, 100 miles an hour, and that thing has to really decelerate when your fascia is not used to that speed and that proprioception? See, that's the thing. That's why we use a lot of proprioception with a stick, a bottle on the elbow, of in space. What the Desmotech helped us is creating proprioception at high speed. That's where we saw overspeed component. I remember I was in Jamaica once. I was with a golf pro, And there was a golf pro that was started to win on tour. He was in his 40s, big guy, and he used to use a weight on his club to practice. And everybody guys did that. And I tell guys, don't do that. It says, why? You're going to untime your training. Yeah, but I feel better. It's okay. Let's do a test. Take your driver, hit 5 balls. And we have these devices to really measure. It's called a TrackMan and with camera. Then, and also he had a cubic balance. It's an old golf club that it was grooveless. Then you see where the ball hits, and we're able to measure. And I mean, the first couple, he's a pro. I mean, the first couple were off center, but the last 2 or 3 were good. Then, okay, says take that weight, swing it 5, 6 times, redo it, and it was spreading it all over the face. And then, okay, says you want to reset it? So yeah. Take the head of your club upside down and do super fast swing, back and forth. Don't even think about golf. Right. Super. Take a couple of rests because your heart rate is up now, a minute or 2, retake it right away, bang, right in the center. Wow. What happened is that when he had the head of his club in his hand and the shaft is very light, his brain was not, his proprioceptors had to really activate from the hands to the feet to the core. Everything in his body was firing because it was going all over the place. Then, when he turned it back, momentarily, his brain felt like it's a little heavier. Obviously, the club didn't get heavier. His perception was heavier. Then, his precision, he had more feedback. His cerebellum with everything that worked together was more tuned. It's more like I was holding him. Now he had more feedback. And that's where we talk about when we use that's why a weightlifter, Olympic weightlifter, is one of the top athletes that could do pretty much everything. A gymnast could do pretty much anything. Why? They do high velocity, landing, movement. But again, to go back, for me, if you want to do something in the gym, if you can't, learn to do full Olympic weightlifting, not from the hang, from the floor. And you might be surprised, there's not much stuff you could do. It's going to give you high speed mobility. You're going to have deep squat, less low back pain. You'll be able to run faster and move better.
Paul, it was an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Merci, Matt. Thank you.
Where can people find you if they want to know more about the amazing work that you do?
Well, on Instagram, I mean, and by the way, I'll send you a video of, there's a girl who had a scoliosis in Italy at Desmotech, and I just gave her a couple of exercises with the flywheel. I want you to have that, and you'll post it. It's very interesting. Awesome. How quick, and we did it on a very objective on the e-board. Like we saw how much the center of mass change. I didn't tell her, oh, you look better. I wanted the machine to tell people, and that's very interesting. Yeah. But on my Instagram, the Expertise 360 has a lot of my work. If you do expertise, you'll find pretty much all the work like we have together.
Yeah. We love Alex helping us out.
Yeah.
So guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Stay tuned. There will be more. See you next time.